Welcome back, everyone, to Singapore Property Talk Law. Today, we're stepping back a bit from the usual price charts and cooling measures. We're diving into something really fundamental that shapes everything else. The latest population figures. The annual population and brief report just dropped, with data up to June 2025. And believe me, these numbers have, well, pretty huge implications for policy, for infrastructure, and definitely for the housing scene. Okay, before we really get into the weeds here, just a quick reminder. Please do like this deep dive and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss out on these essential insights.
Absolutely. And our goal today really is to break down the key takeaways from this report. We're not just looking at that top line growth number. We need to unpack, the composition of that growth. What's driving it? What are the underlying demographic shifts, the aging, the fertility issues? These are really changing the fabric of Singapore.
Right. Let's start with that big number then. It's a new record, isn't it? Singapore's total population hitting 6.11 million as of June 2025. That's a 1.2% increase from last year. On the surface, it looks kind of modest, steady growth.
Yeah, 1.2% sounds manageable, but it's deceptive. The crucial thing to grasp is where that growth came from. It was almost entirely propped up by the non-resident population.
Oh, okay.
So this isn't organic growth from citizens having more babies, not at all. It points to a very specific policy response, meeting immediate economic needs. And for anyone watching the property market, this makeup has, well, massive and immediate consequences, especially for rentals and infrastructure load.
Okay, let's dig into that then. This non-resident spike, you said it drove the growth. The report shows they grew by, what, 2.7% year on year?
That's right, 2.7%, pushing their total number up to 1.91 million people.
So nearly 2 million. And where are they mainly coming from? Is it professionals or?
No, not primarily. The biggest chunk of this increase is work permit holders, followed by migrant domestic workers. If you look at the whole non-resident group, about 2/3 are actually part of the foreign workforce.
And this pace of bringing in foreign workers, is it stable or accelerating?
It's remained pretty stable compared to the previous year, June 2023 to 2024, which really confirms this isn't just a temporary blip, it's a sustained reliance to meet economic demand.
Okay, let's zoom out slightly. The overall population growth rate, annualized over the last 5 years, 2020 to 2025, that was 1.5%,
Correct.
which is way higher than the 5 years before that, 2015 to 2020, when it was only 0.5%.
Exactly, 3 times higher.
That's a significant acceleration.
Yeah.
So what's behind that big jump over the medium term?
Well, the report is quite clear on this. It links that acceleration largely to the increased number of work permit holders needed for the construction sector.
Ah, the big projects.
Precisely. You've got massive infrastructure works happening concurrently. Think about Changi Terminal 5 getting into full swing. And also the huge government push to ramp up housing supply, especially HDB flats.
Right, building all those BTOs.
Yeah. All that requires a massive amount of physical labor. And frankly, the non-resident workforce is filling that immediate, very urgent gap.
So in just 1 year, we've absorbed something like nearly 50,000 new non-residents, mainly to, well, literally build the future infrastructure and housing. For our listeners focused on property, what does a surge like that, specifically concentrated in the foreign workforce, do on the ground, especially for housing?
Well, it puts immediate pressure on certain segments. While many construction workers live in purpose-built dormitories, the sheer scale still strains temporary housing options and definitely the lower end of the rental market. It also taxes basic infrastructure, public transport near work sites, utilities, local amenities.
So it's a real balancing act.
It absolutely is. We need the economic contribution, but bringing people in that quickly requires really careful planning to avoid overloading the system right now.
Okay, let's pivot now, away from the non-residents filling immediate gaps, and look at the core population, the residents. That stands at 4.2 million, right? And it's made up of citizens and permanent residents, PRs.
Correct. 3.66 million citizens and about 500,000 PRs, 0.54 million.
And how do those numbers change?
Well, the citizen population saw only a modest increase, 0.7%. And the PR numbers, interestingly, remained stable, pretty much unchanged.
So very different dynamics compared to the non-residents. This brings us to immigration, doesn't it? It's clearly central to managing the overall numbers.
It is. This is where we shift from thinking about immediate labor needs to long-term demographic stability. Singapore relies quite heavily on a structured immigration policy. The figures for 2024 show about 22,766 people granted citizenship and around 35,264 granted PR status.
And it's a known process, right?
Yeah.
All new adult citizens, they have to come from that existing pool pool of PRs first.
Yes, that's the pathway.
So given the demographic challenges we're about to discuss, the aging, the low birth rates, is this pace of immigration, around 23,000 new citizens a year, is it seen as enough to stabilize the citizen population?
Well, enough is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's certainly necessary. The rationale is sound.
Hmm.
Immigration helps to moderate the impact of aging and those persistently low birth rates. It acts like a buffer, trying to prevent the citizen pool from actually shrinking over the long haul.
Which would be disastrous for the economy, the tax base.
Absolutely. It would destabilize everything. So it's a continuous, calibrated intake. It's designed specifically to compensate for that internal decline.
So if I'm hearing this right, it's like a two-pronged approach. Use non-residents as a flexible workforce, almost like an economic tap you can turn on or off,
To some extent, yes. For specific needs like construction.
while using the PR to citizen track as a more permanent demographic tool to shore up the core numbers long-term.
That's a good way to put it. It captures the duality. One addresses immediate, often project-based needs. The other is a steady drip feed aimed at long-term balance against some pretty severe structural headwinds.
Okay, let's talk about those headwinds now. This brings us to the internal challenges, the demographics within the citizen population itself. And the big one is aging.
It really is the defining shift. The numbers are quite stark. As of June 2025, nearly 21%, 20.7% to be exact, of citizens were aged 65 and above.
Wow, 1 in 5.
Yeah. And just think, only a decade ago, in 2015, that figure was 13.1%.
That's incredibly fast.
It is. The pace of aging is blistering, faster than many other developed nations.
And it's even more pronounced at the very top end, right? The oldest old.
Yes, the number of citizens aged 80 and above, that cohort grew by about 60% over the last decade, from roughly 91,000 in 2015 to 145,000 now.
60% increase in the 80-plus group in 10 years. That's huge.
It is, and the projections show it continuing. By 2030, so just a few years away, nearly 1 in 4 citizens, the forecast is 23.9%, will be 65 or older.
How does that massive structural shift impact things like, say, housing and town planning?
Fundamentally, it changes priorities for HDB, for urban design everywhere. An older population needs universal design, more barrier-free access, ramps, better lifts, housing integrated with elder care services, close to transport.
We're seeing things like community care apartments being rolled out.
Exactly. That's a direct response. It's not just a social nicety, it's becoming an infrastructural necessity. And of course, this older cohort requires significantly more care, which drives up demand for migrant domestic workers.
Which loops back to the non-resident numbers again.
Precisely. It's a feedback loop. Fewer working-age citizens means potentially more reliance on foreign help for elder care, boosting non-resident figures.
And speaking of the working age group, that's shrinking proportionally, isn't it?
It is. The percentage of citizens in that prime working bracket, say 20 to 64 years old, has dropped. It was 64.5% back in 2015, and now it's down to 59.8%.
So fewer workers supporting more seniors.
That's the core financial tension. A smaller share of the population earning income and paying taxes has to support a rapidly growing group needing pensions, healthcare, and social services. It puts immense pressure on public spending.
And layered on top of the aging crisis is the other major challenge. Fertility, or the lack thereof. The resident total fertility rate, the TFR, it's stuck at a historic low, right? 0.97 in 2024.
Unchanged at 0.97. That's basically the lowest ever recorded. It puts Singapore way below the replacement level of 2.1.
Miles below. We're just not replacing ourselves internally.
Not even close. And this is compounded by social trends. People are marrying later. The median age for grooms is now nearly 31, 30.8. For brides, it's 29.1. That's up significantly from a decade ago.
And more people are staying single altogether.
Yes, the proportion of singles has gone up across almost all age groups. It's particularly noticeable in the 25 to 29 and 30 to 34 brackets, those key family formation years.
Which logically leads to smaller families.
It does. The data on family size is quite telling. If you look at ever married women aged 40-49, the share who had 3 or more children has plummeted. It was about 34.5% 2 decades ago. Now it's only 20.6%.
Wow, almost half.
But maybe even more significant is the flip side. The share of women in that same group, 40-49, who have no children at all, that has more than doubled.
Doubled from what to what?
From 6.7% 2 decades ago to 14.4% now.
1 in 7 married women in their 40s having no children. That fundamentally changes the picture of housing demand down the line, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If families are consistently smaller, maybe one child, or none the demand for those classic large five-room HDBs or big condos, that curve shifts. Instead, you probably see more sustained demand for smaller units, maybe 2 or 3 bedders, often in more central locations, catering to singles, couples, or smaller households, prioritizing convenience over sheer space.
But here's the strange thing, the paradox.
Yeah.
Despite these really low birth rates in later marriages, surveys consistently show aspirations are still high.
That's right. About 80% of young Singaporeans still say they intend to marry. And among married couples, over a third apparently aspire to have 3 or more children.
So the desire is there on paper, but the reality, the outcome, is completely different. What's stopping them? What factors does the report point to?
It highlights a combination of pretty tough structural pressures. The high cost of raising children is a major one, obviously. Then there's the difficulty of achieving real work-life balance in a competitive environment. High parental expectations, maybe pressure to provide the very best, also plays a role. And perhaps a broader generational shift where young adults are prioritizing education, career development, maybe other life goals before starting a family.
It sounds like these systemic issues are just overwhelming the personal desire for marriage and kids for many people.
That seems to be the case. The structural realities are proving very powerful.
Now, the government does try to help.
Right.
We see various schemes. The report mentions the recent large family scheme, offering extra cash up to $16,000 for the third child and beyond.
Yes, those supports exist, and they have been enhanced over time. Financial incentives are part of the picture.
But if these cash bonuses aren't really moving the needle against those bigger societal pressures and economic realities, what's the actual path forward to maybe lift that TFR even slightly?
Well, many argue the conversation needs to go beyond just cash payouts. It's about tackling the structural rigidities. Things like genuine workplace flexibility, making that the norm, not the exception, significantly lowering the cost and improving the accessibility of essentials like quality childcare and preschool education, until the broader social and economic infrastructure makes it genuinely easier and less stressful to raise children. The reliance on immigration to simply maintain population levels looks set to continue. It becomes almost a demographic necessity.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together for our listeners. What's the main takeaway here? It feels like Singapore is juggling two different strategies simultaneously.
I think that's fair. On one hand, you have heavy reliance on the non-resident population, particularly work permit holders for construction, migrant domestic workers for care to meet very immediate economic and social needs. That's the short to medium term fix.
Right, the builders and the carers.
Exactly. And on the other hand, you have this very careful, measured immigration process, turning PRs into citizens designed purely to stabilize the citizen core against those powerful demographic forces of aging and low fertility. That's the long game.
But this reliance, especially on the rapid influx of non-residents, it does come with potential side effects, right?
Yeah.
Social integration issues.
Yes, the report touches on that societal implication. While immigration is vital, bringing in large numbers quickly, especially non-residents, requires careful management. There's always that tightrope walk to manage integration and ensure infrastructure keeps pace. Experts often warn that if the influx feels too much, too fast to the local population, it can risk fueling anti-immigration sentiment and social friction. It's a constant balancing act.
Okay, that leads us nicely to our final thought for today. Usually when we talk about Singapore's population, the conversation defaults to capacity. You know, how many people can we physically fit on this island?
The physical limits.
But maybe, given everything we've discussed, the shrinking working-age citizen group, the rock-bottom birth rates, despite high aspirations, maybe the more critical question isn't about space. Perhaps it's this. What are the deeper, long-term economic, social, even cultural consequences when a society wants to have families but finds it structurally so difficult that it becomes permanently reliant on bringing people in from outside year after year just to keep the numbers stable and prevent the core from shrinking?
That definitely shifts the focus. Less about physical capacity, more about the sustainability of the human core itself and the choices we make to support it, a question that will certainly shape Singapore's future path.
A sobering thought to end on. Thanks for breaking down those complex numbers for us today.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for tuning in to Singapore Property Talk Law. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.